I used to think Guyu would be my forever. Until I was hospitalized with stomach issues while he was celebrating Jingya's birthday. I decided to let him go and to free myself too. We broke up. I was the one who ended it. Everyone called me dramatic, saying I'd be crying and begging to get back together soon. Even Guyu thought so. Later, I found new life on the arm of a younger man. That's when Guyu panicked. #1. I loved Guyu for 10 years. I once believed he was my entire world. Even if he didn't love me, I was willing to offer him my whole heart. I firmly believed that someday, I would warm this stone heart of his. But even when I was hospitalized, he was still celebrating Jingya's birthday. I finally woke up. This man never belonged to me. I stared blankly at a photo on the wall. The background was our university's ginkgo forest. In the picture, I was smiling foolishly at him on a carpet of golden leaves because he had just accepted my confession. Guyu once asked why I chose that photo. I answered, because it captures the happiest moment of our lives. The bed dipped slightly as Guyu sat down beside me. What are you looking at? Just how young I was back then. Young me had been deceiving myself all along. Only now did I realize that in the photo, I was the only one who looked happy. His eyes didn't hold even a trace of joy. Guyu followed my gaze and casually comforted me. You're still young now. By the way, my phone died last night. What did you need me for? Yesterday, my stomach condition flared up. I was at home, drenched in sweat from pain, crying as I called him, but all I got was a busy signal. I called again. His phone was turned off. Just before I fainted, I managed to dial 120. I only woke up after reaching the hospital. Then I saw Jingya's social media post and I understood. He was celebrating her birthday. In the past, I might have brought it up gently, then thoughtfully bought him a power bank. Now you won't have to worry about your phone dying. But suddenly, I felt tired. Because I remembered how once when Jingya was discussing something with him, they talked for 2 hours until his phone died and shut off. He borrowed my phone to call her back. He told me then, Yuyu, I'm afraid she'll worry. I wanted to ask, wasn't he afraid I would worry too? But it seemed asking would only invite humiliation. I shook my head. Nothing, I dialed the wrong number. He thought I was upset and frowned as he explained, yesterday was Jingya's birthday. I couldn't just step away to charge my phone, so I interrupted him. I get it. But I really did dial the wrong number. I picked up my pack bag and headed for the door. By the way, I have something tonight, so I won't be coming back. I couldn't be discharged yet, but I had no change of clothes at the hospital, so I'd come home briefly. Yuyu, don't be moody. You know I don't like that. I'm not being moody. I really do have something. As I closed the door, I realized I wasn't upset at all. Nothing is more important than my own health. #2. Back at the hospital, the nurse didn't seem to notice I'd gone home briefly. The needle pierced my vein, and cold medicine slowly flowed in. I closed my eyes and realized that no matter how much water I drank or how much fluid I received, I no longer felt the urge to cry. After some time, I heard a familiar cool voice. Doctor, what's wrong with Yenyu? It was Guyu. He had found me. I turned my head in bed as he asked the doctor about my condition and follow-up treatment plan. He was unhurried yet thorough, considering every detail. After the doctor left, he sat beside me and ruffled my hair. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? His tone wasn't pleasant, as if he was pained by my illness. I stared at him, suddenly unable to distinguish reality. Guyu caring about me? That's impossible. In his world, only work and Jingya seemed to matter. He would stay up multiple nights for work and invest time and energy for Jingya. But I never seemed to get any special treatment, not even a little. That was my position. I finally recognized it. I lowered my gaze, avoiding him, staring only at the needle, feeling the medicine gradually making my body cold. It's nothing serious. I'll be fine soon. Guyu's hand tightened, seemingly surprised by my response. After all, I was the type who would whine pitifully to get his attention even for a minor cold. He paused, then took my free hand and said softly, last night was an accident. In the future, I'll borrow a phone to call you back. I was a bit surprised. Guyu would give me the same treatment as Jingya. That wasn't like him, but I didn't feel happy about it either. Maybe I had no expectations of him anymore. I thought for a moment, then shook my head. I don't want to inconvenience others. I thought he wouldn't say anything more, but unexpectedly, he pressed his lips together and said, trust me, I'll return your calls from now on. Okay. It seemed like his promise should have been heartwarming, but the fluid still left me feeling cold. #3. I had loved Guyu for 10 years. He was my childhood neighbor, my college senior, the student council president, and a campus celebrity. All the girls liked him, including me. But his eyes only saw Jingya, another senior in the student council. Unfortunately, Jingya had a pre-arranged marriage since childhood. He did nothing, only maintaining a friendship with Jingya, silently watching over her. Until junior year, when Jingya got engaged to an equally brilliant man. The next day, I confessed to him. He accepted. During that time, I'd wake up smiling from my dreams. I knew my confession took advantage of his vulnerable state, but I believed that if I was good enough to him, he would eventually fall for me. But after 3 years, just when I was about to give up, he finally gave me a little. The same treatment as Jingya. I felt like letting go. After 2 days in the hospital, I returned home again, suddenly feeling strangely out of place. It was as if I shouldn't come back here anymore. I stood there for a while before slowly walking in. Guyu, if a stock isn't suitable but a client has already bought a lot and lost a lot, what should they do? My work involves clients in the financial sector, so the question wasn't out of place. He paused, ignore the losses and sell immediately. But they've invested so much. Selling now would mean losing everything. If the stock is wrong, clinging to sunk costs will only make you lose more. I was silent for a long time, then finally said softly, I see. I couldn't cling to my sunk costs anymore. Perhaps I had been silent for too long, unlike my usual chatty self. He seemed uncomfortable, pressed his lips together, and took out a gift box from the drawer. A dark green box, elegant and luxurious in appearance. His slender hands opened it. Inside was an elegant blue diamond necklace with a diamond of about 3 carats. I was planning to give this to you on your birthday, but I thought I could give you something even better then. Don't you like blue? Want to try it on? He picked up the necklace, ready to put it around my neck. I pushed it away. He froze. What's wrong? I'm not Jingya. I don't like blue. When I mentioned Jingya, his expression changed dramatically. This name, since we got together, I had never brought up voluntarily. He seemed shocked that I would mention her name. He was silent for a long time before saying hoarsely, but you always buy blue things. Because I once thought that if I became like her, you would notice me more. I calmly interrupted Guyu. Before you met her, I always liked red and I still do. Guyu, I don't want to imitate her anymore. #4. I don't know which of my words triggered him. After a moment of silence, he threw the necklace into the trash and stormed out. The door slammed shut with a bang. I glanced at the trash can, then followed him out. Guyu didn't like girls drinking alcohol, and I had never been to a bar. Today, I suddenly wanted to try. The bar was noisy, thick with cigarette smoke, and you'd constantly bump into people as you moved around. I didn't understand what was Southwest appealing about this place that made so many people addicted to it. Until that first sip of alcohol hit my stomach. I suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of liberation. I even wanted to curse at myself. Why had I given up experiences I should have tried just because of a man's preferences? They changed singers on stage. The face was obscured by smoke, but that bold blue hair and that cool guitar made the bar seem even noisier. Especially when he arrogantly announced, "Does anyone know how to play guitar? I injured my hand today, need someone to come up and accompany me." Maybe it was the alcohol going to my head, but after 2 or 3 drinks, I suddenly stood up and walked toward the stage. I'll do it. I was dizzy. He swayed into 2 or 3 people before my eyes. I saw him raise his eyebrows. You know how? No. He sighed. Whatever. Just play anything, I'll sing whatever. The other band members were stunned. This is our last show and you're doing something this wild. That's Meng for you, always doing whatever he wants. I wasn't sober enough to understand what they were saying. The one called Meng stuffed the guitar into my arms. Know how to play whatever? I thought for a moment. Just strum randomly. I think so. But why was this guitar plugged in? I didn't understand, but the drummer had already started beating the drums. The enormous drum sound startled me, and my hand slipped across the guitar. A piercing noise rang out. Meng paused, then grabbed the microphone and started singing. He was probably truly improvising. The lyrics were ridiculous. You can't play, yet you force me to sing, this is how I spoil you. What nonsense was this? Though he sang well, I decided I'd never complain about bar noise again. After all, with my performance I'd only added to the bar's cacophony. #5. Though it was chaotic, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. When the song ended, I laughed louder than anyone else. What about Guyu? What about our 10-year relationship? To me, they were just a jarring, unpleasant song from the past. Once heard, never to be listened to again. Just as I was about to hand the guitar back, Meng tilted his head. Feel better? I struggled to stand steady, responding instinctively, yes. Want to feel even better? Ha! Smashed the guitar hard against the floor. As if possessed, I followed his suggestion, grabbed the guitar, and smashed it down hard. Hum. After the tremendous noise, the entire bar fell silent. Everyone stared at me in shock, but I turned to look at Meng. He was mouthing, "Feel good." I screamed hysterically, "Hell yes." Instantly, the whole bar erupted. Screams came in waves, nearly shattering the roof. Meanwhile, Meng pulled me off the stage. He was still dragging the wrecked guitar. Outside the bar, the cold wind sobered me up considerably. That's when I realized what I'd just done. My face flushed. "I am sorry, I'll pay for the guitar." His friend, who looked barely 20, laughed outright. "Sister, don't take responsibility for nothing. That guitar costs hundreds of thousands." Hundreds of thousands? I felt even more guilty. "Can I pay in installments?" Meng, who also looked quite young but had a fierce demeanor, said, "I told you to smash it. Why would you pay? You don't look like you hang out in bars often. Little girl, you should go home. Where do you live? I'll take you." I opened my mouth. "I'm older than you." He paused, then suddenly smiled. "Big sister, let me take you home." The way he said "big sister" was deliberately drawn out. I couldn't help but glare at him. How could someone like this exist in the world? Someone so completely different from Guyu. When we reached my neighborhood, I looked up slightly. The lights in my apartment were on. A familiar silhouette stood by the window. It was Guyu. I froze for a moment. "Boyfriend?" Meng followed my gaze. "Yes. Doesn't seem impressive," he said casually. "You've been out so late, and he didn't call you, didn't look for you, and even when he saw me bringing you home, he just stood there watching. Either he doesn't love you, or he's so sure you won't leave that he's waiting for you to explain yourself. Big sister, you're a poor judge of character. #6. His words hit me like a sledgehammer, instantly waking me up. A stranger could see the truth with just one glance. Yet I'd been stupid enough to be trapped in it for 10 years. The failure of this relationship was my own fault. Meng shrugged. "I'm leaving." "Wait, what's your number? Let's add each other." "About the guitar money. Adding me is fine, but forget about the guitar. If you hadn't smashed it tonight, I would have done it myself." I was stunned. "Why?" "My old man is forcing me to join the company. Knowing him, he'd do it himself, so I might as well beat him to it." I was speechless. He turned and walked away, waving his hand without looking back. After he left, I took a deep breath and walked toward home. The lightness I'd felt earlier was gone. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Guyu still standing by the window where I'd spotted him, a cigarette between his fingers, looking both anxious and angry. "Who was that?" "A friend," I said calmly. He strode toward me, grabbed my arm, and asked through gritted teeth, "What kind of friend?" "I don't know him." "And you were drinking with him?" "Yu, I've told you, I don't like girls drinking alcohol." Before he could finish, I pulled my arm away and pushed him back. Not hard, but he probably never expected me to push him away. He stumbled back a few steps. I pressed my lips together, then met his gaze. "Guyu, whether you like it or not is irrelevant to me." After a pause, I continued word by word, "Just like your feelings for Jingya are irrelevant to me." He was silent for a long time, so long that I lost patience and was about to walk to my room. Finally, he spoke hoarsely, "Yu, Jingya, and I never." "I know, but it doesn't matter to me." Yes, Guyu had never been with Jingya, but he had always been willing to wait for her. Just like I had been a few years ago, with my heart and eyes full of Guyu, willing to wait for him. I used to care about these things, but today I suddenly felt tired. I had let go. Guyu's mood was unusual tonight. For the first time, he was correcting me so seriously. "You're my girlfriend. All of this concerns you." Maybe it was the dim light, or maybe I was truly drunk. I thought I saw Guyu's eyes reddening, but I didn't want to discuss any of this with him. "Guyu, I'm tired. I have to report to my new company tomorrow." "All right. I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. We'll talk when I get back." In the bathroom, I sighed softly. Reporting to the new company was both an excuse to avoid conversation and the truth. During my sick leave, my boss had acquired a company and wanted his son to try managing it. I was assigned to assist his son for a while. I had specifically called my best friend for information. She quickly replied, "Is it the Meng family's young master? I've heard of him. They say he's trouble." My boss even sent me a message, "Yenyu, if Meng Yuan gives you any trouble, let me know. I'll deal with him." I knew I needed to conserve my energy, because everyone had warned me that this young master Meng was not someone to mess with. #7. I arrived at the company early the next morning. But it wasn't until noon that young Master Meng finally showed up, all in black with 2 holes in his pants and that short blue hair. The color looked familiar. I froze. He strode over to me with his long legs. Big sister, we meet again. The day before starting my new job, I had smashed my future boss's guitar at a bar. I didn't feel like talking anymore. He sat on the sofa with one leg crossed over the other, while I pretended to casually glance at him several times. I had to admit that punk style paired with his incredibly handsome face. It had an indescribable bad boy charm. By my fourth look he sighed, "Big sister, if you want to look, just look. Or have you had breakfast? Want to gnaw on some duck necks?" He waved the bag in his hand. The aroma of braised duck wafted toward me. I was stunned. This job was completely different from what I'd imagined. An arrogant rich kid eating duck necks on his first day at work. I quietly sought out the manager. "Is this really the boss's son? Wasn't he supposed to be difficult to deal with?" The manager pushed up his glasses. "He truly is difficult. Last month at a cocktail party, our young master broke someone's 3 ribs. A chill ran down my spine. Meng Yuan looked to be in his early 20s, yet his behavior was so vicious. "So, I don't dare approach him. Please do me a favor and give him these documents." The manager shoved the papers into my hands, essentially dismissing me. I was speechless. When I returned to the office, I found Meng Yuan sound asleep, his long legs casually propped on the desk, surrounded by duck bones. After asking the cleaning lady to tidy up, I placed the documents on his desk and turned to leave. In the afternoon, Meng Yuan finally woke up. I seized the opportunity to discuss work with him. He only focused on his computer screen, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Documents? I don't understand them. Isn't there some manager? Big sister, just have him sign them." The speakers blared with in-game kill announcements and Meng Yuan wouldn't even look away. I was completely exasperated. If it were that simple, my boss wouldn't have transferred me here to assist him. But fortunately, I had plenty of patience. At 5 o'clock sharp, Meng Yuan shut down his computer and stood up. "Time to go home." "Coming, big sister." I was shocked. I'd never left work right on time before. "I need to explain these documents to you. You're my assistant. If I'm leaving, you have to go too. The sky can fall tomorrow. Let's go, big sister." Meng Yuan dragged me out of the company. 3 minutes later, I watched as he zoomed past me on his motorcycle. I had a headache. Was this young master really here to work? #8. The days that followed were both painful and enjoyable with Meng Yuan as my boss. He left work exactly on time every day, and as his assistant, I also walked out the door at 5 o'clock sharp. But apart from that, Meng Yuan neglected his duties. When he wasn't sleeping at work, he was playing video games. He still hadn't looked at the documents in my hand, and even the manager was at a loss. I know managing a child isn't easy. If Meng Yuan has been at work for a week and still knows nothing, Chairman Meng won't be happy. As the unfortunate one caught in the middle, I had to use my secret weapon. 5 minutes later, Meng Yuan had a cigarette dangling from his mouth, his fingers moving rapidly. "Hurry up. What are you doing picking mushrooms in the jungle?" Meanwhile, I stood beside him, reading in a clear, formal voice. "During the service period, Party A must strictly maintain confidentiality regarding the contract contents or pay liquidated damages." 20 minutes later, his game ended. I had only read 1/3 of the document. My feet, in newly bought high heels, were aching. I could only carefully shift my position. "Slow down." Meng Yuan was completely exasperated. He stood up, his 6-foot-plus height extremely intimidating. "Big sister, you're standing on stilts. How can you stand for so long without getting tired?" As he spoke, Meng Yuan pushed his executive chair toward me. "Sit down and read slowly." Probably afraid someone would come in and bother him, there was only one chair in the entire office. I refused to sit, so he simply pushed me down. And thus, a strange scene unfolded. I sat in the large executive chair reading the proposal. Meng Yuan bent over, playing his game at the computer. From my angle, I could clearly see his collarbone and chest muscles beneath his collar. As I read the document, I found myself losing focus. When another game ended, Meng Yuan straightened up. Seeing I still hadn't finished reading, he seemed truly annoyed. He grabbed the document from me. "What is this long-winded thing? I'll look at it myself. Go get yourself some water." As Meng Yuan examined the proposal, his frown deepened. "What's going on with the logistics funds? What can you do with just 2 million? The cost calculation is problematic too. Some losses weren't factored in. Send it back. Have the manager prepare a new proposal." I was stunned. Wasn't this young master supposed to be ignorant? Perhaps afraid I wouldn't remember, he took a pen, circled several sections, and tossed it back to me. "Oh, and announced to everyone that from now on, proposals submitted to the company cannot exceed 3 pages. Otherwise, whoever wrote it will have to stand in my office and read it aloud." I was speechless. Hashtag 9. That evening, I received a red envelope from Chairman Meng Yanyu. I knew my judgment wouldn't be wrong. With you encouraging him, Meng Yuan's enthusiasm has immediately improved. Although I didn't understand how Meng Yuan's new rule related to his enthusiasm. But going along with the boss is never wrong. In the days that followed, I would bring proposals to Meng Yuan. This young master would glance at them between games. Over time, I came to deeply admire Meng Yuan. He could always precisely and incisively identify problems and provide solutions. Of course, he was the type who would give orders with his mouth while others ran their legs off. But the one thing I couldn't understand was, Meng Yuan made me tell everyone that he understood nothing, that I had made all the changes. Otherwise, he'd fire me. Why? You clearly know what you're doing. Meng Yuan's fingers kept hitting the keyboard. You don't get it. If the old man finds out I'm competent, I'll have to take over other companies too. I don't want to work myself to death. While playing his game, he suddenly stood up. I need to use the bathroom. Watch this for me. I shook my head at the already loaded game screen. Just clear the minions in the bottom lane for me. I'll be right back. Meng Yuan made it sound simple. By the time he returned, I had been killed 3 times. He looked horrified. So when you said you couldn't play, you weren't being modest. Forget it, let's go get something to eat. I'm hungry. Before I could refuse, Meng Yuan pulled me outside. Aren't you my assistant? It's perfectly normal to have dinner with your boss. Meng Yuan kept brainwashing me until we stopped in front of a motorcycle. No girl has ever ridden on this bike before. You're the first. I studied him for a long time, finally confirming that this kid was serious and not playing a prank on me. What's with that expression? This is a limited edition. As he spoke, Meng Yuan handed me a helmet, scaring me into backing away. Unfortunately, I couldn't refuse. By the time we reached the restaurant, I felt like I only had half a life left. The other half had been blown away by the cold wind during the ride. He was cutting his steak when he seemed to remember something. Big sister, have you broken up with that boyfriend of yours? I was taken aback before realizing he meant Guyu. These days, with Guyu away on his business trip, we had tacitly avoided contacting each other. I shook my head. Not yet. Meng Yuan frowned. Not breaking up. Saving him for family gatherings during New Year's. I laughed. No, he's on a business trip. Haven't brought it up yet. Oh, boring. For some reason, Meng Yuan suddenly lost interest. He didn't even finish his steak, and as soon as I finished eating, he took me back to the company. After work, I returned home to find Guyu sitting on the sofa with his eyes closed, resting. Only then did I realize. Today was the day he was supposed to return. I had completely forgotten. As if sensing my presence, he tiredly opened his eyes. Yu, you're back. In that moment, I realized I had truly changed. Hashtag 10. In the past, seeing him like this, I would have told him not to work so hard, then urged him to take a shower and go to bed. I might even have massaged his temples for him. But today I only said flatly, yes, I'm going to take a shower. As I walked past him, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Yu. He was silent for a moment, then finally sighed. There's a university reunion in a few days. Let's go together, shall we? He probably wanted to use the reunion to ease the tension between us. I agreed. Jingya was there that day too. She even fainted at the reunion. Guyu unconsciously took a couple of steps toward her. He paused, then turned back to me. Yu, she fainted. I need to take her to the hospital. Don't overthink it. I'll come right back after dropping her off. Okay. I was unusually calm. Okay. After watching him carefully carry Jingya into the car, I took a taxi home under the concerned gazes of the others. I had many belongings, but not much I wanted to take with me. I quickly packed 2 suitcases. Before leaving, I left the key on the table and sent a WeChat message. Guyu, let's break up. Then I posted on my moments, happily single. This man I had loved for 10 years and been with for 3 years, we were finally breaking up. Looking back carefully at the memories this relationship left me with, it seemed all that remained were times when I texted him and got no reply, only to discover he was commenting on Jingya's Weibo. How he always forgot our anniversaries but never missed a period when Jingya was on hers. And that day in the hospital, when I had a fever of 102F and wanted him by my side, but he was celebrating Jingya's birthday. Too much disappointment had accumulated. It was time to part ways. Guyu called back quickly. Yu, don't be dramatic. It's not that I don't want to rush back, but Jingya is pregnant and there's no one here to take care of her. Wait for me to come back and explain. Okay. I just sighed. Guyu, is Jingya pregnant with your child? Of course not. Yu, what are you suspecting? I'm not suspecting anything. I just find it a bit amusing. The child isn't yours, yet you're so attentive to her. But every time I was hospitalized, you were absent. Guyu, I truly don't want to be with you anymore. After I said this, I heard a chair scraping on the other end, followed by doors opening and closing. Yu, I was wrong. Please wait for me, okay? I'm coming back now. Guyu, I've realized I don't love you anymore. The footsteps on the other end stopped. Dead silence. I hung up, pulled my suitcases, and closed the door behind me. Goodbye, my youth. After leaving, I didn't know where to go. I dragged my suitcases, walking aimlessly. Suddenly, I heard the screech of brakes beside me. Big sister. I turned. It was Meng Yuan, sitting in his car. Meng Yuan, big sister broke up with him. Yes. He chuckled softly, that's good. I was puzzled and he shrugged. Big sister, want to try something exciting? #11. I never would have guessed that Meng Yuan would take me go-karting. And these were professional go-karts. These are the professional ones. They can reach speeds of 60 miles per hour. Meng Yuan expertly picked out equipment for me and found a two-seater. Watch me go first. I promise it's really fun. Meng Yuan skillfully started the engine and the vehicle shot forward like an arrow with full G-force. In that instant, thoughts of Guyu, Jingya, and my decade-long love were all left behind. I could only grip my clothes tightly, constantly telling myself, stay calm, stay calm. This was the boss's son, after all. If I cursed at him, I might lose my job. Big sister, open your eyes and feel it free and unrestrained. I forced my eyes open. Meng Yuan drifted around a curve and I felt my soul chasing after us. Only when the car finally slowed to a stop did I feel the ground beneath my feet and realize how good it was to be alive. That scared you? Meng Yuan opened a bottle of water for me. Do you know how to drive? I nodded. When Guyu was learning to drive, I had signed up for lessons too, just so I could have more chances to talk to him. Then give it a try. This is the miracle cure for heartbreak. He looked so serious that I felt tempted. I got into a single-seater cart. Stepping on the gas to accelerate, I felt the wind speed and my heart leaped with excitement. Lap after lap, I couldn't stop. Meng Yuan raised an eyebrow. Big sister, shall we race? There's no way I could win. I'll go easy on you. Meng Yuan and I stood at the same starting line, took off at the command. Every time we approached a curve, Meng Yuan would noticeably slow down. I confidently increased my speed, somehow just wanting to win. Don't take curves too fast. Meng Yuan shouted. I barely heard him and stepped on the gas at the curve. The car suddenly lost control and veered off the track, crashing hard into the barrier. All I could hear was ringing in my ears as I hugged my head without speaking. Big sister, Yu, are you okay? As everything went black, I heard Meng Yuan's anxious cries, racing with the boss's son and ending up in the hospital. And the chairman found out. This was something I wouldn't have dared imagine before. But now I was lying in the hospital, with Meng Yuan standing outside the room. I could faintly hear his father's angry roars. Have you lost your mind? How could you do this to the poor girl? I couldn't bear it. More importantly, the chairman's wife Meng Yuan's mother was sitting beside me, peeling fruit. Have some fruit. Tomorrow I'll make you some soup to help you recover. That's not necessary, ma'am. I shook my head repeatedly. Don't be so formal. Just call me auntie. Our old Meng has mentioned you a capable and reliable young woman. It must have been our Meng Yuan who dragged you there, right? I didn't dare mention our bet at all. Soon after, Meng Yuan entered with his father. #12. Chairman Meng sat beside me, asking with concern if I was uncomfortable anywhere. If anything doesn't feel right, you must speak up. Don't keep it to yourself, it could lead to chronic issues. I've scolded Meng Yuan. In the future, don't indulge him. This was the first time I'd received such attentive questioning from an elder, especially one who was my boss. I felt a bit overwhelmed. All right, Mom and Dad, you should head back now. I'll take care of her. Mrs. Meng handed me the peeled apple, then suddenly turned stern as she scolded Meng Yuan. Taking care of her is the least you could do. It's all because of you that this poor girl is so badly injured. Actually, my injuries weren't serious at all, but the chairman insisted I stay in the hospital for 2 days. He specifically instructed Meng Yuan to look after me. During my hospital stay, Guyu called many times. I got so annoyed that I finally blocked him. As for Meng Yuan, perhaps out of guilt, he completely changed his attitude and became very serious about work. In just 2 short months, he signed 3 major contracts for the company. The new company officially got on track. That day after work, Meng Yuan offered to drive me home, but he took a different route. We've finished the contracts. I'm taking you out to have some fun. Just hearing the word fun made my head ache. Don't worry, it's completely safe this time. As it turned out, Meng Yuan brought me to the bar where we'd first met. The familiar heavy metal music pierced through my eardrums. Last time I was on stage, watching you drink alone with your head down, looking so clueless. I never imagined someone as dazed as you would dare to come on stage and play guitar. Big sister, you really are something else. #5. I didn't understand how someone who smoked could talk about how smoking was bad for your health. Meng Yuan caught my gaze and immediately frowned. What's with that look? Ever since you coughed when the smoke bothered you last time, I quit. Okay. It was true. No wonder I hadn't seen Meng Yuan smoking lately. After the hairstylist had us seated, he carefully examined my reflection in the mirror. Beautiful lady, what style would you like? I looked at Meng Yuan. Ask him. Let me think. Meng Yuan took a small catalog and flipped through it carefully, occasionally looking up to study me. This one. Meng Yuan pointed at a big wavy style. During the hairstyling process, Meng Yuan bought some barbecue, sat beside me, and chatted while eating. Honestly, shopping with you is pretty fun. Are you sure? I glanced at the pile of shopping bags. Almost all of them were mine, chosen by Meng Yuan, and paid for by him too. When I was about to pay, Meng Yuan put on a stern face. He was already tall and imposing, so the salesperson immediately handed the card machine to him. Really, buying things for you gives me a sense of achievement. I suddenly understand what you girls feel when playing Love Nikki Dress Up Queen. Wow, he even knew about Love Nikki. He must have done his homework. Seriously, I plan to work harder now, so I can earn more money and marry you. Could he really be serious? Meng Yuan threw himself into his work. Given how dedicated he'd been lately, the chairman was extremely pleased. Mrs. Meng even invited me to attend a dinner party. Yu, I know it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, this boy would never be so well behaved. I quickly shook my head, but Mrs. Meng patted my hand. Don't worry, I understand. I wanted to cry. What exactly do you understand? Meng Yuan followed his father to network, and Mrs. Meng was whisked away by another wealthy lady. I sat alone in the corner, staring into space, watching Meng Yuan from a distance. He had already dyed his blue hair back to black. In his tailored suit, with his fair and chiseled face, the whole person seemed to shine. As I was thinking about this, Yu, I looked toward the voice, and it was actually Guyu's mother. Mrs. Gu looked me up and down, her expression like she was appraising merchandise. Your dress is too short. Girls should be reserved. This isn't proper. In the past, I would have patiently dealt with it. But now, we'd broken up, why should I care what she thinks? I didn't respond, but Mrs. Gu continued. I heard you and Guyu broke up. You two weren't really suitable anyway. You're not getting any younger, you should find a good family and get married soon. #6. Mrs. Meng had somehow appeared behind me. That's none of Mrs. Gu's concern. Someone like Yu, if she became my daughter-in-law, I'd be smiling in my dreams. Mrs. Meng sighed softly. It's just that my son isn't ambitious enough. He still hasn't won her over yet, and as his mother, I'm getting anxious watching this. A chill ran down my spine, but Mrs. Meng had her arm around me, so I didn't dare move. Is young Mr. Meng pursuing Yu? Mrs. Gu asked incredulously. Of course. Our family has good taste. Unlike some people who don't cherish such a precious gem. Mrs. Meng snorted coldly and led me away. Before leaving, I deliberately glanced at Mrs. Gu. After losing face, her expression had turned ashen. Perhaps Mrs. Gu's arrival made Meng Yuan suddenly nervous. Taking advantage of Mrs. Meng's trip to the bathroom, he grabbed my hand and ran. Sweetheart, I don't have any former flame, I promise I only like you. I'll do whatever you say, will you be my girlfriend? Good grief, he was talking and throwing shade at the same time. Are you sure? Meng Yuan nodded even more vigorously. Definitely. So it's settled your mind now. I never imagined I'd start my next relationship so quickly. After we started dating, Meng Yuan became even more reckless. An internal call every half hour. Yu, I can't focus on these documents. What do you want then? Come in and give me a kiss, or I can come out and kiss you. That request was truly a bit much. We ate lunch together in the office. Meng Yuan fiddled with his phone, insisting on taking photos. What are you taking pictures for? To choose a good one to announce our relationship. Don't people need to know we're dating? After taking the photos, Meng Yuan immediately posted to his social media, then took my finger to add my fingerprint to his phone. There, now you can check my phone whenever you want. That's not really necessary. It felt like invading someone's privacy. I never had the habit of checking Guyu's phone before. In our years of dating, I never even knew his phone password. Aren't couples supposed to be honest with each other? Or do you have secrets on your phone that I can't see? Meng Yuan immediately put on a stern face. Let me see your phone. I quickly handed over my phone. The social media post was made by Meng Yuan for me, and the comments were all congratulations. Only one comment stood out awkwardly. You really broke up with Guyu? Are you okay with that? Actually, this friend didn't have any bad intentions, they just always spoke their mind. But Meng Yuan was still fuming. No way. Tonight we're having a get-together. Let your friends meet me and see if anyone still has wrong ideas. There's no need to go to such lengths. Why not? Are you planning to play with my feelings without giving me proper status? No way. #7. Under his watchful eye, I really did invite a group of friends out for dinner. Throughout the meal, Meng Yuan held my hand tightly, not letting go for a second, like he was staking his claim. But unexpectedly, halfway through the meal, an uninvited guest arrived. Guyu. At first, everyone's eyes kept darting between Guyu and me. But Meng Yuan watched closely, so Guyu and I didn't even have a chance to talk. Look how different Yuyu is now, more cheerful, like a young girl. My bestie teased, is it because of the new boyfriend? Meng Yuan put his arm around my shoulders, looking extremely pleased. Everyone enjoyed the dinner. At the end, I accompanied my bestie while waiting for her car. Meng Yuan was settling the bill. Guyu's expression was complicated. I want to talk to you privately. We have nothing to talk about anymore. I coldly refused him, not even willing to look at him. Yuyu, how is he better than me? Break up with him and come back to me, okay? Guyu frowned. As soon as he said this, my expression turned cold. He's better than you in every way. Besides, he doesn't have some true love he's pining for. After saying this, I watched Meng Yuan running toward me after paying the bill, and I smiled and ran to him too. In the days that followed, to train Meng Yuan, the chairman immediately sent him to investigate a site in another city. Neither I nor the manager went with him. Meng Yuan ranted about this at home for 10 minutes. That old man just can't stand to see me happy. Finally, after coaxing Meng Yuan onto the plane, I promised that I would reply as soon as I saw his messages and have a video call every day. A week passed with Meng Yuan away. While I was working at the company, I received a message. I thought it was from Meng Yuan, but it turned out to be from Guyu. Yuyu, can we meet? I have 2 things I want to tell you. Let's meet at the coffee shop below your office. It won't take long. After some hesitation, I agreed. Guyu sat by the window, his posture straight, still looking as elegant as ever. Yuyu, how have you been lately? I nodded without replying. Guyu's eyes darkened. Aren't you going to ask about me? There's nothing to ask. Our relationship is different now. Guyu took a deep breath, his eyes slightly red. Yuyu, I really regret it. I always thought I liked Jingya, but when she got married or when she got pregnant, I felt nothing inside. But when I saw you with Meng Yuan, I was insanely jealous. Guyu looked up, staring intently at me. 8. I was too stupid. Only now do I understand these feelings. Actually, I've liked you for a long time. With Jingya, it was just an obsession with something I couldn't have. Yuyu, can you give me another chance? I fell silent as I looked at the person before me. I had imagined countless times that Guyu would tell me he didn't like Jingya anymore and wanted to be with me properly. Now it was finally happening, but it was too late. I like Meng Yuan. He's good to me, humorous, fun, and lets me be my most authentic self. Guyu, I don't actually like Lu. I don't like pretending to be a proper lady. I don't like growing flowers and plants. I like playing video games, drinking, and wearing spaghetti straps and short skirts. Just before I fainted that day, I managed to call 120 and only woke up after reaching the hospital. I imitated her, studied her, hoping one day I could replace her in Guyu's heart. But I forgot who I really was in the process. When I was with you, I kept diminishing myself, becoming what you all liked. But it was really exhausting. I want to be myself now. Guyu fell silent. I could see his fingertips trembling. Those years. I'm sorry. So, I have no chance anymore, do I? Guyu, let's both free each other. I firmly shook my head and raised my left hand, where a 3-carat diamond sparkled brilliantly. I said, I'm getting married. Is the groom Meng Yuan? Yes, it could only be him. I finished speaking and stood up, only to realize Meng Yuan was standing behind me. Wasn't he supposed to be investigating out of town? How did he come back? Meng Yuan glanced at Guyu but quickly turned his gaze back to me. Then, ignoring everyone around us, he hugged me tightly. Darling, I missed you, so I flew back. His hands applied slight pressure, his breath falling on my ear, making my face burn. This was just like Meng Yuan when he wanted to express his love, he did so without restraint. I missed you too, I said softly. I enjoyed the love he brought me. Then I'll take my wife to dinner. He held my hand and walked toward the cafe exit, saying as we walked, I've booked a private room. Tonight both sets of parents will meet to discuss our wedding. He said he wanted to marry me. He said I was the only one who could be his wife. After meeting Meng Yuan, I finally understood how blissful it was to be cherished by someone. I coldly refused him, not even willing to look at him. Yu, how is he better than me? Break up with him and come back to me, okay? Yu frowned. As soon as he said this, my expression turned cold. He's better than you in every way. Besides, he doesn't have some true love he's pining for. After saying this, I watched Meng Yuan running toward me after paying the bill, and I smiled and ran to him too. In the days that followed, to train Meng Yuan, the chairman immediately sent him to investigate a site in another city. Neither I nor the manager went with him. Meng Yuan ranted about this at home for 10 minutes. That old man just can't stand to see me happy. Finally, after coaxing Meng Yuan onto the plane, I promised that I would reply as soon as I saw his messages and have a video call every day. A week passed with Meng Yuan away. While I was working at the company, I received a message. I thought it was from Meng Yuan, but it turned out to be from Yu. Yu, can we meet? I have 2 things I want to tell you. Let's meet at the coffee shop below your office. It won't take long. After some hesitation, I agreed. Yu sat by the window, his posture straight, still looking as elegant as ever. Yu, how have you been lately? I nodded without replying. Yu's eyes darkened. Aren't you going to ask about me? There's nothing to ask. Our relationship is different now. Yu took a deep breath, his eyes slightly red.